Calaroga Shark Media.
Hello, I'm Johnny Mac with your daily comedy news. I just got out of the car where I was listening to podcasts. I checked out David Cross's Senses Working Overtime with guest Bob Odenkirk, and I was terribly disappointed. I like David Cross a lot. So far, not the best podcast host you've ever heard. I am a professional podcaster with 30 years of broadcast experience, so I'll share some actual notes. One of the notes I would say as a program director is the show's turned inward, and I'll compare it to something else in a second. But he starts talking to Odenkirk, and they're riffing with each other and making each other crack up, but they're in their own room. They're not including the audience. You feel a little left out. They're also using verbal shortcuts where they know what they're talking about and you might not. Now, what's interesting to me is Cross suggests that other people have sat in the chair before, so this is not the first recording, which makes me think they said, oh, let's lead with the Bob Odenkirk episode. That's worrisome as well. The other thing is Cross's show doesn't sound good. I don't know if they recorded in a big empty room. Cross's mic doesn't sound right. I add processing on this show to give my voice a little heft. If you meet me in real life, I'm a little less bassy than what you're hearing now. There are things you can do, guys. I will give it another shot, but after one episode, David Cross, love you, but this one, I don't know. You could use some consultants. My contact is in the show notes. I'm sure I'm not making any friends here. Then I listened to Trevor Noah's podcast. Did Trevor take my note? On the new episode, he's got Sam Altman. That's the ChatGPT guy. Fantastic interview. Now, I had previously mentioned that Trevor was starting the show with 10 minutes of talking to random people that I didn't know who they were. And Trevor probably even told me during the podcast who they were. And I was like, I don't know who you are and I don't care. Skip. On this one, Trevor took the note, got right to it, right to Sam Altman. Very interesting listening about artificial intelligence, a subject that I'm very interested in. I'll take a point off. In the entire interview, there is some low rumble. That is something that happens. For example, I record here in the basement. My boiler often runs. There's easy ways to get rid of things. There's things called a noise gate where you can get rid of any noise below a certain decibel. You can run things through a processor that will get rid of rumble. I do both of those on this program. Now, I would say I don't know who's running things over there, but I see who's credited with the production of this show, and you should know better. I'll leave that there. I'm not making any friends today. Trevor Show, yeah, definitely listen to that. David Cross, hopefully it gets better. Collider had a good premise during the week. They wrote, Netflix stand-up specials aren't special anymore. I agree with this. Everybody's putting out comedy, especially at these YouTube things, and everyone's using the word special. And I think we need to get back to calling things hours or half hours. Chris Rock goes live on Netflix, and he's going to talk about the Oscars. Yeah, that's a special. You went down to the Chuckle Hut and set up 2 cameras, and your friend threw it in Final Cut Pro, and the audience isn't mixed right. I don't know if that's a special. We need to back down with that. Collider writes, if everyone wins a trophy, is anyone truly a winner? There used to be a time when landing a Netflix comedy special was a big deal. In the mid-2010s, only great comedians like Bo Burnham, John Mulaney, Demetri Martin, and Chris Tucker were given a spotlight on Netflix. Now, it's as if no one is curating the specials that are produced for Netflix. Half the time, these big-ticket comedy events just appear on the streaming service with little to no fanfare in the form of advertising. I pointed that out all week with Stavros Halkias. Just there was no press about it for 3 days. Collider writes, unless it's a generation-defining comic like Norm Macdonald, Ali Wong, Jerry Seinfeld, or Dave Chappelle, Netflix couldn't seem less interested in pushing new specials. Should I bog down in Ali Wong generation-defining? Same note on Norm Macdonald. I mean, Norm's great and all, but I don't know if he's generation defining. Should I bog down on that? Not today. How could you be interested when you're busy releasing these every 5 minutes for every comedian on the planet? It's as if they've run out of comedians and are granting this platform to anyone because, unfortunately, for every living thing on this planet, Matt Rife's first Netflix special is getting extra special treatment from the folks behind the world's biggest streamer. Collider adds, had anyone at Netflix actually been curating their service's content, maybe natural selection would have done its job and killed this special piece of garbage before any of us had to endure it. It was pretty bad. Somehow, they have debuted a comedy special that manages to pull off the exact opposite intended feeling. Rife has unlocked the ability to tell hardly any jokes in his comedy special in favor of spewing ape-brained TikTok vernacular and waxing philosophical about why people shouldn't take internet trolls seriously, while also throwing a fit over his Twitter replies. Is this what Netflix actually deems special? I love this article. This is fantastic. They then recap Rifegate. I won't do that today. If you listen to me every day, you've heard it. Netflix, if you're listening, please take a step back and find us the next great voice. You have the money, the resources, the reach, everything you possibly need to find the next great comedian. Slow down the conveyor belt of stand-up releases and give the best comic possible a special that feels truly special again. The thing is, the guy running Netflix Comedy knows what he's doing. He was a big wig up at Montreal Comedy Festival when I used to do stuff with Just for Laughs all the time. I'm on Robbie Pra's LinkedIn right now. We're actually connected. His title, Vice President Stand-Up and Comedy Formats at Netflix. 7 years at Netflix. And before that, 12 years, 2 months at Just for Laughs as VP of Programming. So it's not like he doesn't know comedy, man. Who knows? Probably comes down to the algorithm. But I agree. There are too many things being called specials. We're just throwing stuff up there. But isn't that what Netflix does? I mean, Netflix has a lot of content. I'm not sure how much of it is awesome. I am not making friends today. Jesse David Fox, he has that new book about comedy. RogerEbert.com interviewed him. They were curious, what's it like for Jesse when he's in an audience and not connecting with a comedian, but all around you, people are in hysterics? Good answer here from Jesse. If the comedy doesn't connect with me for whatever reason, I don't find it actively sinister or bad. I'm able to join in with the audience if the size and the energy are correct. Mostly, I'm happy to be around people laughing. I think, okay, cool, this is great. The audience is doing a good job supporting whatever this is. You could appreciate it like you would any art form. Like when you walk around a museum, you see different things. You go like, I like this a lot. I'll spend time with it. Or I don't like this much, but I'll read what the deal is and contextualize it. Good follow-up here. You quote Mark Maron, who said that laughter is the only thing standing between us and fascism. I don't know. I once saw a so-called right-leaning comedian who told these absolutely horrible jokes about Hillary Clinton. The audience rocked with laughter. It was almost frightening. Jesse said it's complicated. The problem is that as much as the right can say that all comedy on the left is clapter and pandering, it's not exactly true. If you're going to see a comedian just because you agree with their political opinions, then they're not operating as comedians. They're operating as birthday party clowns who repeat the phrases people know from watching Fox News. Donald Trump is the best version of that. Send your letters to Jesse David Fox, care of Vulture. From the AARP, your home for comedy news, Jesus Trejo. He's a caregiver. This interview spoke to me a lot. If you listen every day, you've caught me mention here and there. It's been a rough year for my mom. It's been a rough few years for my mom, but the back half of the year has been quite challenging. And I asked Jesus what's the top 3 lessons he's learned from caregiving. He said the bullet points are time, resting, and humor. You got to have a lot of patience. You got to rest. You got to take the time to make sure you're resting to be ready for what the day brings. And you have to take everything with some humor. If you can master those 3, I think everything else becomes easier. You have to have a good sense of humor because things tend not to go how you planned, and sometimes you just have to laugh. There's no other emotion that you can tap into other than just a laugh and a smile. The hard thing about caregiving is that you're juggling so many things. You're juggling life, you're juggling career, you're juggling caregiving, you're juggling the caregivers. I'll jump in specific to this podcast. Yeah, there have been a few weeks here where normally I record one day in advance, except for the weekend. I usually do the weekend on Thursday or Friday. But during the week, I'm usually just doing the next day. There were a few times where I was working 2 days out, 3 days out, just in case I was going to be unavailable to do the show, if you know what I mean. Luckily, it didn't come to that. I've recorded a few safety episodes. I've got some reruns ready to go in case I'm unavailable. So yeah, there's definitely juggling to it. I've written episodes in emergency rooms. So I'm really feeling this article. Jesus says, being a stand-up comedian, being a caregiver, they kind of go hand in hand. I'm also able to be a good caregiver because I do have that creative outlet, and I'm able to be a good comedian because I have this part of my life that's very different than most of my peers. I learned a lot about myself as a person and an artist, and it's that the only constant thing in life is change. Aging is part of life. You can't escape it. Everyone's going to deal with it. Either you're going to need a caregiver or somebody to take care of you, or you're going to care for somebody. It's just how it goes. I will say that caregiving is a privilege. I know it's hard to see when you're in the midst of changing a diaper, being in a tough situation where you see your parents not feeling well. It's time spent with your parents, and as tough as it is sometimes, you're going to look back and laugh at those moments. It's a privilege. Remember that. I'm actually going to wrap there. I had more, but I think that's such a poignant note. I'm going to call it a day. That's your comedy news for today. If you like the show, tell somebody about it. If you want to support the show, buymeacoffee.com/dailycomedynews. See you tomorrow.